You're welcome once again, ladies and gentlemen. Connecting the Dots Museum. We start with the welcome address from the Director of Natural History Institute, Dr. Olayemi.
The Vice Chancellor, ably represented by Professor O. Yunusa, Principal Officers of the University, Deans, Directors, Heads of Department present, the Gothi Institute, and participants from Connecting the Dots program, visiting from outside Ile-Ife, the Odeyemi family, and all our distinguished guests at the high table or the high chairs. Staff of the AG 11th Museum of Natural History, members of the Obafemi Awolowo University community, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Our country, Nigeria, has too rich a natural and cultural heritage to fall short of its pride of place amongst nations. They say in order to know where you're going, you have to have an awareness of where you're coming from. That is the purpose of the Connecting the Dots program. A program initiated and championed by our guest speaker today, Dr. Nadina Ziget, and a brilliant team at the Gothi Institute. Indeed, our collaboration with the Gothi Institute has served to reinforce the idea that museums are custodians of our past, but they can also function as portals into the future. In our collaboration with the Gothi Institute, we now have an ongoing exercise to digitize our natural history specimens. We have a visiting fellow who is conducting exciting research, some of which you will hear about today. We have a fascinating youth education program, of which some of the items you will see will be on exhibition during this event. For all this, I would like us to give a warm round of applause to the Gothi Institute. Another person we celebrate today is Chief Dr. John Agboola Odeyemi. Chief Odeyemi was a key actor in helping to facilitate the actualization of the architectural masterpiece that stands today as our Natural History Museum building. And Chief has been supportive through the years, not only materially, but morally. This May coincides with Chief's 85th birthday, and it offers us the opportunity to appreciate Chief for his support through the years. Sir, it is a great pleasure to have you amongst us. Please, can we give a warm round of applause to Chief Odeyemi? So I welcome us all to this program. If there's one idea I hope we can take away with us, it is this: museums are the mirror that we need to revisit. Museums can help us learn more about ourselves. And if we know more about ourselves, we'll be better equipped to forge a unique and prosperous path into the future for ourselves, for our people, and for our nation. Thank you very much, and welcome once again.
Now I want to invite Dr. Nadine Signet, the director of the Gothi Institute, for our talk. We are delighted to listen to you because we know that we are going to gain from your wealth of knowledge during the course of this program. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. Ikaro. I'm still learning. That's also one of the reasons why I have to check my phone for the right names. Forgive me if I know most of your first names, but I'm still looking at my phone to get the full name properly. Thank you so much for having us here today for our first Connecting the Dots Museum Conversations program. I will speak more about this program and why this is only the first, and there are 5 more to come, which we are very excited about. But let me first speak some word of thanks. And I want to start thanking our hosts here at the university in Ile-Ife, which makes us very happy to start here at this university with our program, because as the whole world know in the meantime that everything has started here in Ile-Ife. We are all coming from Ile-Ife, and I think this is knowledge that should be translated and communicated to the whole world. So we are happy to start here with our conversations as well. I want to thank our host, the convener and host, Dr. Olayemi, from the Museum of Natural History, for hosting us here today, and also our convener, Professor Adisa Ogunfolakan, for having us here, for inviting us, for showing us around, and for being wonderful hosts for us here today. I want to thank Chief Odeyemi for your presence here. Thank you for having us yesterday and for being here with us today. It means a lot for us. And I want to thank everyone who is here present today with us for your interest in coming here with us and joining us. I want to thank my team at the Goethe Institute, and in particular Toby Idowu, who is putting together all this program with a lot of work, with a lot of coordination, bringing all these people here. Thank you so much for this fantastic work. I also want to thank our mentor who is here with us today and the days to come. Our mentor for this program, but of course she's wearing a lot of other hats, as for example the president of ICOMOS, Oluwatoyin Sokbesong. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey. And I want to thank the Ford Foundation, who is gratefully sponsoring this program. So actually a small part of the financial budget of this program comes from the Goethe Institute. The bigger part actually comes from Ford Foundation, but that's also fine because we are doing all the work. So the Ford Foundation is checking in once in a while. They are asking how is it going, but they are trusting us with developing this project with our partners, with our fellows, with the museums that are participating. So also big thanks to them. And we will definitely communicate to them how wonderful it was to start it here in Ile-Ife at the university and at the Natural History Museum. So what is Connecting the Dots about? Connecting the Dots is, as you all know, it's a museum project. It has to do with African museums, it has to do with Nigerian museums, but it has to do also with the bigger scope of museum projects that is happening right now worldwide. We are talking a lot about restitutions in the last years, in the last month, and as you might also have heard, like recently Nigeria was one of the first countries who has officially received objects in this process of restitutions. These were the Benin bronzes that were coming from German museums to Nigeria last year, and I think this was the first time maybe that this gained a lot of attention also in the media, not only like in Germany but worldwide. So museums, African museums, Nigerian museums are very much paid attention to, and I think this is a wonderful moment to kind of be very alert and awake about it, because this also means that there's more attention, there's more funding, and there are more opportunities for museums here on the continent, for museums in Nigeria, but also for everybody who is part of that. It's a wonderful opportunity for people who are in museum studies. It's an opportunity for people who are interested to do research in museums. It's an opportunity for people who work already in museums. And it's an opportunity for the museums themselves, not only to collaborate and cooperate with museums in Europe, but also, and I think this is much more important, and this is why we do connecting the dots like we do, it's very much also about the African, or in this case, the Nigerian museums themselves. It's about your own way of doing things. So we are thinking a lot about what does African museology mean, and of course, I'm not doing that, but the museums are doing that, and the Goethe Institute tries to support these projects. So just a small detour for those who don't know what the Goethe Institute is, and of course, why should you know? You could probably know because we are in Nigeria since 60 years, more than 60 years actually, 62 in the meantime. A long time, but mostly operating from and in Lagos. I don't know what happened like 50 years ago. Maybe I'm sure someone was already in Ile-Ife from my colleagues who came before me. But we are trying to strengthen that much more, that we also work beyond Lagos. That because Nigeria is so rich, it's actually one of the most diverse and culturally richest places I've ever been to. And wherever I travel, wherever I go, I mean, I still hope I can travel much more, but what I've seen is so beautiful, amazing. It's so full of knowledge and stories and beautiful landscapes, and I mean, it's just a wonderful place to be for a while. So and the Goethe Institute is, as you might guess, it's a German institution. We are mostly funded by the German government, but we are independent from it, so we are not representing German government position, but we are working closely with them as well. So everything that around the debate around restitution was also like, we are interested in that, we are supporting it, of course, but we are also interested to look beyond the only political level of these current processes. So what we try to do is, besides teaching German, we are trying to do cultural exchange programs between Germany and Nigeria, and we try to support and collaborate with cultural practitioners, with artists, with cultural institutions here in Nigeria. And this is also where connecting the dots comes in. So when we speak about museums, and when we speak about like what we try to do currently with African museology, it's really thinking about what is the museum in Africa, what is a museum in Nigeria. And the more I think about it, and the more I feel like I have a better understanding of it, is that it's maybe a completely different thing as what we have in mind, probably. I've worked in a museum in Germany for many years, and it's really something that I feel needs to be tested. The concept of the museum, the European museum, needs to be tested and needs to be changed when you work in museums here, because maybe, and this is just one example which I always think about, is how do we work with the objects? Because in most of the German museums, objects are always kind of caged in glass vitrines, and then usually you have some interesting light installations, but nobody is able to touch or to smell or to see the objects properly. So, and we hear that a lot in this critical discourse around African museology, and how can we really work on trying to find the proper or the better way to work with museums here on the continent, is that maybe we can first of all free these objects from their being kind of imprisoned in these vitrines. This is just one example. And yesterday we had this beautiful experience. We did some excursions, and we saw like the glass beads that is part of your cultural history. It's part of your cultural heritage here. And we were able to dig with our hands into the ground, and we were finding glass beads there. And it was beautiful. Nobody said, no, don't touch that. No, don't go there. Everybody was invited to go and to make this experience for themselves. And the same with the broken pots pavement. We were able to walk over it. We were able to touch it, to see it, to understand it, not only with our head, but also with our full senses. And I think this is the beauty of how an African or Nigerian museum can be, because it's a museum of practice. It's a museum of living objects. And I feel this is maybe something that we can look more and more into, like what does that really mean to not only show and preserve the objects. Of course, this is very important. A museum is about preserving culture. But what does preservation mean? It doesn't necessarily mean to put an object in a glass vitrine and that was it. Because most of the objects that had been taken to Europe had been stolen, had been looted, had been maybe sold. Some of them were maybe gifts as well. They are all kind of decontextualized and they are sitting there without the connection to what they were really meant for. And they are loaded with cultural meaning, spiritual meaning, and a lot of knowledge is embedded in these objects. And I think the African Museum, or in this case the Nigerian Museum, is the place where this knowledge, where these skills, where this can be reactivated through the objects. And I think this is something that Connecting the Dots is also trying to do. So not a museum of objects only, but a museum of skills, a museum of knowledge, a museum of practice. This is, I think, like what Connecting the Dots is trying to learn and trying to go deeper into. So, I think this is like, how did we put this project into practice, and what did we actually do now? Last year around this time, the first step that was we published a call, and I think it was about 10 Nigerian museums applying for it and saying, yes, we want to be part of it. And then we did the work of really trying to see which museums we would like to invite to participate in this journey together. And for us it was important that it's a good mix of museums in terms of regional diversity. So we were trying really to kind of make sure that not all, of course, that would be nearly impossible to represent all Nigerian cultural regions, because as you are so diverse and you're so rich, but we have a good mix of 6 museums in different corners of the country. So, and then the second step was then to invite for fellowships. And here again, we thought a lot about how can we make sure that this is also representing not only a good diversity of people with different backgrounds. So we wanted to invite artists, photographers, architects, writers, historians, archaeologists, architects. So it was really broad and open for people with different backgrounds who are willing to go to a museum for 6 months and who were interested in presenting a project. So this was really, again, a very beautiful and overwhelming experience, because the projects of the fellows, they were really, really interesting, and it was not really easy to find 6 people only from the pool, but thanks to our jury we were able to find 6 wonderful projects, and then we were trying to match the fellows to the museums. And again, this was not an easy task, because we had to ask some fellows to go somewhere where they had never been before, and to make sure that they feel safe and well welcomed. So far it worked very well, because I have a good impression that all our fellows are very happy at the places where they are. So it worked out well. So, and now we have this beautiful situation that we have 6 fellows in 6 museums, all coming from a different place where they have been before. And this is the fellowship part of the project. And I will speak a little bit more about the fellows and their projects and the museums in a little while. I just wanted to mention the other 2 parts of this project. So beside the fellowship part, we have also the museum conversations, and this, what we do now, is one of them. So we have the museum conversations in all the 6 museums. In May, we go to Kaduna, which will be our second museum conversation. And when we say conversation, we don't mean it only in a sense that people sit and listen like you do now to me, but we mean it also in a way that we do something together, that we visit sites together, that we see, of course, the museum, but we also have a practical part, and we also learn together. So later this afternoon, we have a practical workshop together. Yesterday evening, we were eating food from Ile Ife. So this is also very important for us to really engage with the space in different forms, and not only through talking and listening, but also with all our senses. So that's something that we find is also very important in the museum conversations, and we want to give each museum the chance to really develop a project for the public that they benefit from. So they can invite whomever they want, and they can create a program together with us that is really beneficiary for the museum as well. And the third part, and all these parts are equally important for us, is the educational program. So our colleague Tolu Amy Williams, who is currently in Manchester doing a master's, she's actually the second colleague in the project I really want to give thanks to. She has developed a beautiful education program together with each museum. And here again, it is not so much about bringing ideas about how museum education should look like, but she was working closely with each museum, trying to understand, like, what are the collections of the museum about, how can we activate them, how can we create practical activities around them. And then the museums each invited like a group of about 10 people to these workshops, and over a period of 2 months they developed and still develop. In some museums it's actually still ongoing, like here for example, an educational program which is closely connected to the museum itself and the collections of the museum, but also to the context of the museum. So engaging like people from the communities, engaging artists, engaging people who can connect in every day in contemporary practice to the museum. So that's also something that is part of connecting the dots, and we really hope that the 10 people who are part of these educational programs can later be like multiplicators and keep on going and working with the museum and beyond about this, what they have done and learned there. So this is how the whole project is kind of structured, and before I come to an end, I of course want to introduce our fellows to you and the museums so that you also know whom we are speaking about. And again, I have to look at the last names of everyone because, I still, especially Yoruba names, they have so many O's, and sometimes it's difficult not to forget any of them. So let me start with Bayo Oboborio. Okay, here it starts again already. I'm very sorry. Bayo is a fellow, I would say, from Abuja / all over Nigeria, who went to Lagos to the Crimp Museum. The Crimp Museum is actually the only private museum which is part of the 6th museum. So we also decided for Crimp because, to be honest, when we received your applications, Dr. James, we had never heard about Crimp, and I immediately went to Facebook and I was like, wow, this is exciting. I really want to know where that is and what people are doing there. And then I think the same excitement came through Bayo's application when he said, I really want to go to Crimp and do research at Crimp. And Bayo's research at Crimp is about democracy. And I think what we learned from this project and from your collaboration is that there are actually many sources and resources in Nigeria, not only in the museums, but also in archives, also in oral history. So everything is there, but we have to source it, we have to make it visible, we have to bring it out, and we have to publish it, we have to kind of connect it to contemporary practices. So the knowledge is there, the wisdom is there. How can we connect the dots to make it more visible? And I think this one is a beautiful collaboration that speaks very much about this. And in June, I invite all of you to come to Lagos in June. I think we will use the moment of Around Democracy Day where we will present your collaboration and your project as well. So this is fellow Bayo, and then our next fellow is Toluwanimi Owolana, who is actually, where is she? Okay, then let me quickly speak about her project. Toluwanimi went from Lagos, Yoruba land to Benin City. She was very keen on being there because she wants to do research on the cultural context in Benin City. Of course, Benin City became very much known recently through the restitution of the Benin bronzes and all the cultural heritage that is connected to Benin and the bronzes, but, and I think our colleague from the National Museum in Benin City is also, would I guess also support that there's much more than that in Benin City. And I think the beauty of what Tolu is doing there actually at the moment with you is kind of going deeper into different crafts and different cultural practices in Benin that are either at the moment a bit, I wouldn't say lost because it's still there, but she's trying to kind of understand and dig out and talk to the people who are practitioners of that and make it again more known and more visible. So I think what you did recently is a survey. So you were talking to people, the craft people, and trying to understand like what are people doing, how can we translate that into the future, and how can your museum be a fundamental part of really making all of that visible and making all of that known. Thank you so much also for being here, Mr. Alonge. Thank you. Then, who is next on my phone? Next on my phone is Ifunanya Madufor, who is our fellow actually from Enugu, from the east to the north, from Enugu to Kaduna. And our colleague from the Kaduna Museum, National Museum in Kaduna, is also here. So here you say also like the north is represented, and again, your collaboration and your work or your project is also excites us a lot because as far as we know so far, you're also working a lot on indigenous knowledges and what you want to find out about how the objects and everything that is in the museum is connected to cultural practices. So Ifunanya has traveled a lot in the north, I think 4 or 5 travels so far, to different kind of communities that are connected to the objects in the museum, and this is something that we are going to see very soon in May when we come to visit Kaduna, and where we will see like also what you have done in your project. And I've heard that we also will see like a performance maybe, because you're also working with a theater group there, and this is also a beautiful way how to connect the dots through like to kind of bring what is in the museums into the world, like making it again a living and lived experience. So connecting also to the performative arts, to intangible heritage. I think this is also a beautiful collaboration again. Thank you so much. Then 3 more. It's a bit like announcing awards, but this is just the fellows. Not just, I mean, this is just what our wonderful fellows have done. Orinayomi Odubawo, she's here. She again from Lagos, in this case to the east, to Aba, to the Colonial History Museum. And we have also a representative here today, Victor. And I think this was like maybe, if I may say, one of those matches where we were like really not sure if you would be happy there, because you were like, the east, should I really go? But as far as we know, it worked out so well. And just after 3 weeks, you came back to Lagos for a public event, and you were presenting amazing like first ideas of what you want to do in Aba, and talking about space as an architect, very much about the space also of the museum itself, but also how it kind of connects to the kind of context of where the museum is situated. So, and I think your research or your collaboration is also very much about how we can understand museums as part of a broader context of something that is embedded in a society, is embedded in a cultural context. And you also speak about the landscapes and the nature around the museum. So connecting the museum to a broader net of what the museum, where the museum is situated in. And I think this is also beautiful, because for me, African museology should also be very much about how we can connect the museum like it is connected, but how can we make these connections visible, and how can we work on that to let the museum be an active part in a society? Thank you so much for your collaboration, and we are very much looking forward to come like later this year to you as well. Then we have Judith Dadoud, who is actually our fellow at the moment at the Slave History Museum in Calabar, and we have our representative here as well. So the far southeast, which is also part of our museum network. And Judith is from Jos, so from Plateau State to Calabar. And here again we have a different, but even also very exciting approach, because Judith, as an artist, she is looking into how museum education and museum communication can also kind of be translated through the arts. And your approach is very much about healing and how we can also understand like visitors and audiences' responses to the what is happening in the museum. And of course, since your museum speaks about a very difficult time of the past of Nigerian history, the slave trade, and connected to that. So I think what you do together is also very crucial, and all the museums can learn from that, because it's bringing artistic practice into museum education and make it more like maybe accessible also through other practices and methods. And thank you for your trust also in Judith, and letting her do these beautiful things under the tree. I've seen some pictures and it looks very beautiful. And the last fellow I want to introduce and then already hand over to him, because this is our fellow who has been here for 6 months in Ile-Ife. And Yahuza Rabiu actually comes from the north, so from Yobe State to Ile-Ife, another beautiful connection. And here, this is, as an historian, you looked at, of course, historical facts, and you looked at things that you could find here. I remember your project also first was a bit different. It went into another direction. Then you talked about the bats that are in the trees, and I was really excited about this as well, because I thought like, oh wow, people are also looking at like other things, no, like that suddenly come to mind, and this shows how much these fellowships also like hopefully support like people to look at things differently. But then you found something that you really wanted to investigate further, and I want to thank the Museum of Natural History to let Yahuza go deeper into this research about the glass bead production and the reinterpretation of West African history of technology, how we have called it, because this is something that I find like African museology, when we look more at the research part of that, that is so very crucial and important, that history is rewritten, and all the wrong and false information that is to be found, especially in museums in the north, has to be rewritten. And works like this, you actually like based your work on a finding of a professor who proves that glass beads have been produced in Ile-Ife for many, many years. And your work continued with that, and I think you will talk more about this exciting research that you have done. And I want to thank you and your museum also for like your beautiful collaboration, and hopefully something will come out of it. Before I close and hand over to you, I would like to thank all the museums for their trust, and also to open your museums to the fellows. I know that sometimes this might not have been so comfortable, because the fellows come and they ask a lot of questions. They want to have access to your inventories, they want to have access to your catalogs, they want to have access to your knowledge, everything. And maybe there are some parts where you feel like, maybe that's a bit too much now, or I don't know, but I want to thank you for making that possible and as well. And I think it worked wonderful so far, even if maybe both the fellows and the museums at some points had to leave their comfort zone and learn something new together. And I want to thank you for both the fellows and the museums for your willingness and openness to do that. And I think I close here. Thank you for your attention, and thank you for being here with us. And now we are very much looking forward to hear from Yahuza about the research on the glass beads in Ile-Ife. Thank you. I forgot one thing, sorry. I wanted to say, and then it slipped my mind. There will be a digital publication as well that we are preparing, including the research and the projects of all the fellows. But of course, every museum will also be presented there, so the museums can contribute. We will have also like a handout or a handbook with the educational program. This will be all produced within the next month, so within 1 year you should be able to get access to it. It will be, of course, like on our website, but also on the websites of the museums, free for download, and it's a living document. So everybody can contribute, and it should grow into something that we did together. So that's one of the more like concrete outputs of the projects, and others are hopefully more exchange, more connections, more dots to be connected. And now I thank you for your attention. Thank you.
Now, to the business of the day. The presentation on the theme. The theme is Igbó-Olókun glass bead, rediscovering and retelling Yoruba science and technological history. That's the theme. But the topic under that theme that will be presented by our dear brother Yahusa Rabiu Garba is Igbó-Olókun glass beads and reinterpretation of West African history of technology. So I want to call on Rabiu Garba to come.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Yahusa Rabiu Garba, and I'm from the north, from Yobe State. I've been here for 6 months researching and studying Yoruba heritage, culture, and particularly the Igbó-Olókun glass beads. As Danadin said it, my research is based on the previous publications of my supervisor, Professor Adisa Ogunfalako and Abidemi Babalola. So most of what I will say now is directly from his own knowledge and from what we read about him. Thank you. And as you can see here, the topic of my research is Igbó-Olókun glass beads and the interpretation of West African history. These are the contents. The introduction. The African cultures have a rich and diverse history with beads. Most of the African cultures, if you see, they have associated with beads. Either the one they wear with the clothes or the hand beads, the wet beads. Most of the African cultures, including the Fulanis, wore the beads. So, but before the excavation of 2011 to 2015, it's believed that even the glass beads in Ife were produced somewhere else, or the raw materials were brought from somewhere else. But with the study conducted by Professor Adisa Ogunfalakon and Abidemi Babalola, it's established that all what we found here in the Olókun group is produced is primary production in Ife here, revealing evidence of sophisticated glass production in Ile-Ife as early as the 11th century AD. The new research identifies the high lime, high alumina, which is unique to the Ile-Ife here in Nigeria. Before Leo Fabinius and others think that, yes, there are some crucibles, there are some part of beads that the locals used to pick on the ground here in Ife. But they thought that Africans have no knowledge of this production. They don't have the knowledge of producing these beads as far as 11th century or even before. But with the chemical compositions of what they found here in Ife, and they studied it, the crucibles, the materials, the fragments and others, they studied. It's purely African and it's produced here in Ife. This reinstates the strength of technology our forefathers have, particularly here in Ife. with this narrative of what they found in their research, we can rewrite our stories. Our forefathers are educated enough in a way that they produce what is sophisticated glass here. That even as of then, most of the technologies in the Indus Valley, the Mesopotamia, and the rest will match with this. Leo Pabinio's his name is somehow connected seriously with glass beads and the Ile-Ife in general. While in Gao, in modern-day Mali, he came about a fragment crucible. And you're like, where is this from? And he said that this is from Ile-Ife. He walked all the way from Gao up to Ile-Ife to find how do they get this and where do they get it from. But even after going this long distance, he ended up saying, with Claro Davidson added, that, yeah, we found something here, but it seems like it had been transported from somewhere else. According to the research, as I mentioned, the high lime, high alumina is unique to West Africa. And Ife was far back the center of technology, as the Yoruba believe is the center of civilization. Yes, it is. The research goals now. The goals of our research is to explore the historical significance of the Igbó-Olókun in Yoruba culture for glass production, and to explore the connections between the Igbó-Olókun, Ife in general, and other Yoruba towns and kingdoms, as well as distant regions like the Bida and Gawo. So this means there is a trade connections with Ile-Ife to as long distance as Gao in Mali and Bida in northern central Nigeria today. While we get this, the goals of documenting and sharing the Igbó-Olókun findings to tell the wider world this is our own history. This thing is made here. For the wider world to know that this is the strength of the technology our forefathers have here in Ife. The same is to understand further the history and composition of Igbó-Olókun glass beads, the current practices and potential for survival. In Ife currently, the Igbó-Olókun glass beads is not in production. So part of the research conclusions is with the Professor Adisa Ogunfalakan, we're trying to find how do we revive this ancient precious culture, even in small quantity in the museum. How can they produce this and make it to life? And also to challenge the Eurocentric narratives and rewrite the history in the voice of Africans, through our own voice, to rewrite our own history. The methodology we employed, The methodology we employed in the research, on-site investigation of continuity or otherwise of glass bead centers. We have been to different cities here in the Yoruba land, and as far as Bida, we have been to Obomosho, we have been to Owo, Ila, and the rest, in order to see the connectivity and the trade connections between these kingdoms. How did they make it, and how do they get even these products from Ife? And it tells that Ife has been not only the center of technology, been a center for trade for West African, or let me say sub-Saharan region, that it sends goods to as far as Gao and all over northern Nigeria and Niger of today. The analysis of secondary data, as I said, most of the research production is from what my professor here, Professor Adisa Ogunfalakan, and Abibemi Babalola produced from the research they made on high lime, high alumina, the crucibles, the aims of production, what do they use to produce these highly glass objects. So I studied most of the books written on Ile-Ife history, the Yoruba history and culture, and the academic articles they have written with this. The challenges we face is we have limited related exhibition in the museums. Not that we don't have it many, we have as more than enough specimens here in the museum. But most of it now is under study. we are still studying them to find more information about this beach. So if you go to the museum, what you see is now even up to 0.5% of what we have documented in the museum. We have scarcity of routine materials on specific Olókun beads production. As we said, the originality of Igbó-Olókun glass beads is revealed after the 2011 to 2015 study conducted by my Abu professor sitting here. So you see almost all what we have before 2011 backward is something that is backed by Eurocentric perspective. So with the new knowledge we've gotten now, it debunks all the knowledge we have that these beads and other part of it were exported from somewhere else. So we have limited publications. We will only rely on what Professor Ogunfalakon, thanks to him for producing as much as we can study, and Abidemi Babalola's. Overcoming the logistic and bureaucratic hurdles to gain access to archaeological sites and interviews with locals is among the few challenges we have. To interview people, sometimes you have to go through some unmentionable situations. Yeah, particularly in Bida, while I went there, I have to spend like more than 3 days trying to speak with the curator, one who is in charge of it. I can't speak their language, so they're trying to though they speak Hausa, but they refuse to speak in Hausa so that I will understand. I have to get an interpreter that will be interpreting what they're saying to me. As they said, when they speak in their own language about their own culture, it gives more meaning and more protection. So it's part of the challenges I face. Now the findings. We explored the trade connections between Igbó-Olókun, or Ife in general, and other Yoruba towns, as well as distant regions like the Gao in Mali, facilitated by glass bead production. As I mentioned earlier, Ife have been a center of trade with other sub-Saharan African kingdoms and empires. Most of what they traded include the beads. So glass beads has played a significant role in the trading system and taking the hegemony of Ile-Ife as the center of civilization and technology there. The glass bead is part of what exchange between the productions here in Ile-Ife and other kingdoms outside the Yoruba land. The identified unique high lime, high alumina glass is what gave the Igbó-Olókun its uniqueness. And let me put it this way, it's Africanness. Because that's what differentiates the Igbó-Olókun from the Egypt, the India and Chinese glass bead production. When they try to check it, they come trying to study the crucibles. They come across the high lime, high alumina. The chemical components include high lime, high alumina. Where in the processes they use snail's water and snail's shells like that to produce it. While in the other region they use other chemical components, but this shows that this is purely original here, because snails in Africa is all over. Wherever you go in Ife, you can see snails, and they use that in booming the technology. And part of the findings, I keep thanking Professor Adisa Ogunfalakon, is we were on a survey sponsored by IFRA, going around Ife to see the potsherd pavements in the natural settings. We came across more than 550 different potsherd pavements around Ile-Ife. This all among the few places we went to. This suggests that there are more than this, because there are places we never went to. With the little we went, we discovered more than 550 different places. This shows that people in Ife are sitting on precious natural resources, if I may put it this way. It's left for the people now to dig more into their own culture and revive it to light. But while doing that survey, we come across one center at Ibodo. Prof and the other lead archaeologist, Mr. Joseph, we identified the place to look like a glass production center. Then we go more into if we can find evidence that will back that. Yes, this is a glass production center, and it will be now 2 sites known added to the Igbó-Olókun. Thanks to the culture probe, and I became the first person to find the evidence that suggests the Ibodo Center is a center of glass bead production. I'm happy that this is part of my own research and my own stay here in Ile-Ife. The land of Ife gave me this honor. Thank you. This is a very important component of the Igbó-Olókun. The radiocarbon date of Ife, of the Igbó-Olókun glass bead in Ife, it dates to 1059 to 1423. This is to tell you how long the ancestors here in Ife have been creative, technologically advanced. In conclusion, the Igbó-Olókun story demonstrates the need to rewrite the narrative of African technological history. Reviving traditional technologies fosters cultural pride, create economic opportunities, and inspire future innovations and research. Call to action, we need to protect these centers. As Professor Gumpalakon once said that curators should be allowed to carry guns in order to protect these regions from attacks by people who may destroy it. As we know today, religion, though not bad, is killing so much of the cultures we have in Africa. It's time we start to preserve the things we have and practice our religion while our cultures are stay protected. We might do two together. So it would be good to protect the newly discovered site in Obodo and other existing ones to give room for future researchers to deep more into the excavation of the site and gain more knowledge on what they produce, what do they have there, and all the knowledge is associated. We need to collaborate with international institutions for knowledge exchange, like what the Goethe Institute did. Thank you to the Ford Foundation and the Goethe Institute. Let's join hands to celebrate the rich heritage and culture. Thank you. And let's put our hand together for Igbó-Olókun glass bead production.
Thank you for the good presentation. So this is the real time for the conversation time. So I cannot answer any questions, so I will have to call upon Professor Ogunfolakon to come and join him, and the Director of Institute of Cultural Study also to come and join Professor Ogunfolakon. So if there's any question, the three of them will answer it. So, yes. Today is museum conversation. Any question? So he has presented his work. So now we want to ask him questions.
Thank you very much to the presenter. So illuminating. I quickly try to... I'm from Department of Chemistry. My name is Dr. Ajayi Oba. And I'm impressed with this knowledge that you are espousing to us. I was trying to think about so many Yoruba sayings that gives prominence and importance to beads. They will say Jingbini bi ate akun, ọmọọba tí ń gbélé ṣe bí ọba. You know, these sayings like Adé orí la fi mọba, ìlẹ̀kẹ̀ ọrùn la fi mọ àwọn ìjòyè. You see, bead is very important in Yoruba tradition, and is also a status symbol. Unlike today, where everybody puts on beads, you know, to occasions. In the past, it was reserved for, you know, kings, chiefs, and all of that. And we are researching into the making of it. I mean, beads is very, very important and a way for us to go. On a lighter note, when you said, yes, you are the first person to discover something, I didn't get the name of the town. I said, you know, I just smiled within me that just like Mungo Park discovered the source of River Niger, that the people there knew it was there, you know. And Prof was trying to tell me that, look, okay, when the place was excavated, that you are actually the one that discovered some artifacts to give credence to the fact that this thing must have been done in Ife. And I was also thinking that beads goes throughout Yoruba land in those days. So if they were going to make a king, you know, anywhere in Yoruba land, maybe to Gao and Bida and all of that. And you also made us to know that possibly the source of those beads that was very valuable and a source of wealth in Yoruba land was Ife, you know, and that is very, very interesting, you know. Being a scientist myself, you know, I was also trying to say, okay, let me quickly check. What are the chemical components? You know, you mentioned alumina and all of that. So I googled. I saw Abidemi Babatunde Babalola, who had, I believe, my prof here, who had done work on raw materials, production. And I will go back to go and study the chemical components, you know, of those things, you know, to really understand them well. So I appreciate you. You understand. Being from the north, I've always believed that the northern part of Nigeria is very rich in knowledge. You know, we have a kind of belief in some parts of Nigeria that we think that, you know, when we think about literacy or illiteracy, that when you don't speak English, you know, like some part of Nigeria, that the fact that they don't speak English suggests illiteracy. And I said no. That the northern part of Nigeria has history that dated back to 1,000 years, using the Ajami, the Arabic language. If you wrote down history that dated back to 1,000 years, and we in Yoruba land just got English language about 200 years ago, I wouldn't think that those people who had written down history dated back to 1,000 years are less educated than the people in this part of the country. So, you know, maybe it's like a comment, because I didn't really have time to prepare much when he was calling for a question, and I found out that where there was a pause. So I decided to stand up to give my thoughts.
Thank you very much.
So I want to appreciate you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. A very wonderful cultural enthusiast, and we would like to have you more. But I would like to say, so that we'll be able to move around and then get more questions, please let's write our questions down and let's go straight to the questions so that we can save time. Thank you very much. So, but in the meantime, Professor Ogunfolakon would like to make some comments on Dr. Ajayi Oba's submissions.
Thank you, able head of department, Dr. Ajayi Oba. Okay, yeah, from chemistry. I think your comment, your contribution is actually important, because this is what we need to be doing in the university. collaborative research work. My colleague, Dr. Babalola, that we've been doing this work together, has carried out that analysis in Cyprus. They have this Institute of Archaeology and Archaeometry in Cyprus, where they carried that analysis. And we discovered that the glass bead in Ife is much of this alumni content. But again, we still want to go further by doing the actual research on it here. Because from the analysis and the information we got, they were using quartz, this geological material, quartz, rock. As the one that they were using, they were grinding and firing to get glass before producing that glass bead with some with some rock, color rock to give the color. Because if you use vegetable color, when you burn it, it will become black. But in order not to, for them not to be black, they have to use some rock, this cobalt, and some other rock. After the rainy season in this part of the world, you will see that there's some bluish thing that covered that. They were using that to get the blue color. So that's showing that our forefathers, as early as that 10th century, they've been producing, they have the knowledge. And that's what one of the publications that we said that our ancestors, they were chemists, they were engineers, they know it, they were technologists. So we've discovered that. And we just have to let the world know that this is what we have. That even before the coming of the European in the 15th century, we've been producing some things. But because we've not been following enough. Because we've not been following up because of either religion, either the Western civilization or Western culture. So we have them. But it's because of these other factors that kills those technology. And what we are trying to do now is to revive them. And we've tested it. That's one of the things that we did. But instead of using that raw material, we use bottles. The already prepared bottles, bottles of beer and things. And we got it, but we need to use the raw material. That's the next stage we are going to. And when Yausa said that he discovered, well, you see, that discovery, I will say, the language, when you use English language, it means a lot of things. Actually, I was so glad that day because from the cognomen of Yoruba, Oriki. That's a paper I wrote on Oriki and archaeology in Yoruba land. In our Oriki, there are a lot of historical facts there that we need to explore. In Oriki of the Igbo people, it shows beads that they were either manufacturing or using beads. And when I saw that, I said, okay, let's explore Igbo area for the possible bead production technology. And be it as we are moving around looking for Porsche pavement, Yausa just called my attention to it. The prof, I've got it. And he picked that beads, the glass bead from Bodo. So, to him and probably to me too, he discovered it in that place. That bead from Bodo. So that confirms the Oriki, the value of Oriki in archaeological research, which we need to be looking at. Even the historians, they need to be looking at our Oriki to rewrite some of our history. Because in those days, our forefathers will not tell lies, as we are telling lies today. Because today is political history. Everybody wants to say, I'm the first. But if you are the first, what are the evidences? That is why we archaeologists, quite different from the historians, because we want to see, if you say you are from Ife, I want to see some cultural materials that link you to Ife. And we've been doing that with the Porsche pavement, with even these beads. Because these beads, we've gotten it in Oshogbo, at that site of the, what they call that place, Ocean Grove. We saw it there. In Owo, they are producing beads in Owo. That beads look like the one in Benin. So you will see in migration, because part of his work is also migration, that you see that they were using some of these trades to identify the migration trend in Yoruba land. And that's why you see that Frobinus, when he came in 1910, he was at Gao in Mali, which was about 3,000 kilometers to this place. And he saw the fragment of the crucible they were using to make beads. And when he asked them, they said that he's from Ife, which is about 3 moon to their place. And he came down. So you see that in trade, there are elements of migration trend there. And that's what they have been doing.
Thank you very much.
So Yausa saw it, and I was so glad that he identified or discovered it there.
Thank you very much, Prof, because if we should allow you to continue, we'll have another inaugural lecture. This is very wonderful. And because we have some other programs lined up today, I wouldn't like to waste all the time. So we would like to take 2 more questions, please. One from the head of Department of History, and then one from that, our gentlewoman there. Then another one, Prof. Baba. Okay. So maybe HOD, please allow
Baba
me to
give to Baba.
To give Baba.
Gentlemen, ladies, and the panel, I only want to make 1 sentence comment. I am here surprised and happy about the relevance and coincidence of Igbodo and the palace, which means the palace of the One had been using all these things for more than 1,200 years, from what you see. And that the Igbodo people were serving the royalty and the chiefs and manufacturing it next door to them. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir.
By thanking Baba John Agbola Odeyemi for the wonderful job that he had been doing for our university and for the Museum of Natural History. I also want to thank the Goethe Institute for the support that they have been rendering to our university and their fellows. Let me congratulate the Leventis Museum of Natural History, Obafemi Awolowo University, Ile-Ife, on the success of this program. I must not forget to appreciate my students. These are students of Department of History, 200 level students of Nigerian history. In fact, they have to miss a class of international relations this morning just to be here. So that is to tell you the importance of archaeology to historical studies. So my questions or interventions are 3, but they are related. The first one is, any of the panelists can answer it anyway. Don't let me direct it to anyone. Dr. Yauza, in your presentation, you alluded to the fact that history of technology in Africa is very old. And I want to ask you, I agree with you, because even reading Walter Rodney's How Europe Underdeveloped Africa, you understand that by 1500, before the Europeans came to Africa, the level of technology in Africa was far more advanced than what was in Europe at that time. But today, Europe and America are technologically advanced, while Africa is technological backward. What are these factors? Prof also mentioned some. What are these factors for the benefits of history students? Number 2, you mentioned Leo Frobenius, and I'm sure history students, even though they are in part 2, they will realize that we mention the name of this man frequently in our historical classes, particularly when we are talking about archaeology of Ile-Ife. He was here in 1910 and left in 1912 for 2 years. I want to know which areas, because he was an archaeologist, an ethnologist, which areas of Ile-Ife did he actually make his excavations, and what are the major discoveries? Number 3, this is directed to the museum itself. Last November, we had our NUC accreditation. And you remember, Prof, that we brought the team to the museum. They were impressed. But in their report, one of the areas where we failed is archaeology. That our programs at IFE lack archaeological background. In what ways can the museum be helpful to the Department of History? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. But let's start with, so that we end with the Director Emeritus.
Thank you very much, and thank you, my colleagues, for joining us. I'm also a historian, but I'm now a historian archaeologist. Yeah. To your questions, we're having sophisticated technology before the Europeans come, but now they are advanced or far more advanced than us. Yes, of course, with what we have, the Igbó-Olókun, the Nok culture in Plateau State or Jos, and Benin, we have the Dufuna canoe in Yobe State, which is the third oldest canoe in the world and the oldest in Africa. But it fades not just like this. When the transatlantic slave trade started, we previously have the trans-Saharan slave trade going on, but it's not as bad as the transatlantic slave trade, because the number of people they are taking is just maybe minute in kingdoms clashes, that when they get slaves, they just sell and just go like this. But with the arrival of the Europeans in the transatlantic slave trade, the demands of African slaves rises. So they now give weapons to Africans in order to kill themselves or to fight themselves to sell whoever they caught as slave. That's the reason, for example, in the north central Nigeria, you see most of the ethnic groups lives in mountainous areas. They left their actual environment to where they will feel safe and protected. And when you are looking for protection, you actually leave anything you have there. They may be skilled men in production of science and technology things, but when they have been haunted, you run for your life. We presently have the IDPs camp all over Nigeria. If you're a rich man now in Zamfara or Yobe State, the Boko Haram insurgency will chase you away. You leave your company and everything you have. So the slave trade chased away our ancestors from what they have been doing for long. While at that moment, those that are supporting the slave trade, they are already in the scientific revolution they have there, which is the steam engine. As a professor of history, the steam engine they have been developing their technology while they are taking our technology backward. And immediately after the slave trade, we enter into the legitimate commerce, as they put it that way, the colonialization. And even that one, it drew our ancestors or our forefathers backward. Instead of to progress or to go back and pick up their technological advancements, they were drew back again. And now after they left, the sophistication of science and technology is far above what our forefathers have. The gap of 400 years is not a small thing now. And instead of going back or we start our own technology or science, we adopt their own cultures, we adopt their own technology, and we adopt their own everything. We even try to look as them, because they force themselves upon us, they force their cultures upon us, they force their science and technology upon us. I think that's why we don't have glass production centers, many in Ile-Ife now. We should have continuity. If they did this in over 1,000 years, they should be doing it today in a developed way. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Let me just add a little to what he has just said, because from my investigation, iron was being smelted in Ife as early as the BC. We came across one at the commercial center, one at the site of the Oni Grand Resorts. We have one in Akarabata area, in Yekere area. What am I trying to say? My finding shows that the prison yard that first set up in Ife, what they call the place, in Ilare, Ilelage, they created that one so that they have to be in prison those they found with iron, with pure iron. Because they were smelting iron. But because they want to bring in made in England cutlasses, they stopped them from producing and be bringing made in England cutlasses. And we accepted that because the iron tools that were produced locally lasted longer than the made in England. The made in England, when you give it to those people working on the farm, within 3 months, it's gone. But our own can last for 3 years. So that's part of the problem that kills our own technology. In line with what he has just said, they brought in so many things. Religion is part of what is killing our own culture. You want to do something now because you are a Christian. They say, I said it yesterday. I gave one of my students the assignment to go and work at Ududua Grove. When I told her, he said, Jesus forbid. I was saying, what is the meaning of Jesus forbid in doing research work? This is part of the mentality that is killing our culture in this part of the world. And we have to change it. We have to change it. Culture is culture. Religion is religion. I went to Jordan. They asked me to buy sabaka, the one that the Muslim use. And I told them, no, I'm not a Muslim. And he said, what do you mean? And the man became angry. I said, what do you mean? This is not for Islam. This is our culture. And I told him, in Nigeria, when I put it on my head, I become an allergy. And with my white beard, they will call me Afa. Then he said, no, that I should buy it. But because of the Nigerian system, it cost $10. And those that followed me say, but that is, I don't buy it. It's 400 naira in Nigeria. I should have bought it and then be wearing it everywhere. So that's part of our problem. We don't understand it. Now, going back to your question, Leo Frobinus, when he came, he was actually digging all around Ile-Ife. All around Ile-Ife. And when he heard about the bronze work, he saw the bronze work and things like that, that was when he went to the priest of Olókun then, and he took him to the Olókun grove to uproot or to remove the Olókun bronze set. But we want to thank him because he was the one that exposed the art potential of Ife to the art world. So he did that. Now, on archaeology, yes, it's just unfortunate that Department of Archaeology was rationalized here in Ile-Ife. My colleagues all over the country will always tell me that the best place to have archaeology is Ile-Ife. And we are trying to revive it now. We are trying to revive so that we can bring Department of Archaeology. So that I remember in those days, history students, they used to take courses in our own something. We will revive it. And if there is need be to teach archaeology in the history department, I'm ready to teach it. So just call me anytime, I'm ready.
Thank you very much. While we invite our sister to ask her question, you like a question? You have a question? Okay, thank you very much. Well, please. Then, please. Thank you very much.
Yes, I try to be very short. My question is more regarding how you worked together in the museum, and maybe you can both share like one positive and maybe one challenging moment in the collaboration, because of course as the Goethe Institute we are very interested also in how we can set up these projects, so maybe also something for our learning. And the second question is, how can we support you in making the research more visible in the museum? I mean, you mentioned some ideas already, and of course for us it's also very important that the work of the fellows somehow leaves a trace, and I think there are a lot of possibilities here how this research can become more like part of the museum in form of a display or a continuous research. Thank you so much.
Very wonderful. And I'm sure that's another if you have to make any response.
Yes. Well done so far. I believe that bead is one of our indigenous ancestries. But I want to ask, why is it that it's being attached to royalty and even festivities or celebrations like marriage ceremony, or when one is burying his aged people. Like Yoruba, we say, ṣẹ̀kẹ̀rẹ̀ kì í bá wọn ròde ìbànújẹ́, ó ṣe bí òwe. A rí pé bẹ́ẹ̀ náà ni ìlẹ̀kẹ̀ náà kì í bá wọn ròde ìbànújẹ́. So who is the originator? Then why is it that so much prominence and importance is attached to it and to royalty and festivities? Thank you.
So,
and I'm the curator of National Museum in Ife. I would like to ask a question, and at the same time I want to make a comment.
Please go ahead.
My comment is that, one, I want to correct a misconception here. And that has to do with Leo Frobenius, when they said he discovered Igbó-Olókun. To me, I want to say that is very, very wrong. It is wrong in the sense that if traditional institutions, they knew where those things were buried. And that is the more reason why it is very difficult to even date if an object. Because what happened is that anytime they finish using the antiquities, what they do is they bury it for preservation and for protection. So and anytime they want to there is need for it, what they do is they go and dug it up and then make use of it and then bury it again. And that is why it is very, very difficult to name if an object. Then one other thing I want to say is that Igbó-Olókun is unique in the sense that it is the only site in sub-Saharan Africa where the technology of beads making is combined with iron smelting. And when you are talking about iron smelting site is all over Yoruba land. Even in my hometown, even in Ikare, we have iron smelting sites. We have even at the back of our house, we have iron slabs. I used to see tuer, I used to see mine piece and some other things like that. So, but the only thing I want to, one other thing I want to say quickly because of our time, has to do with the fact that what Igbó-Olókun revealed as regards we say Ife is one of the centers of world civilization. And that has to do with the urbanization, urban planning, methods in ancient time. You discover that what they do is that they separate industrial site from the residential site. And what they do is that in the morning they go to the industrial site in the morning and they retire in the evening to the residential site. And that is why you see most of this group, very many of them, they are far away from the residential area. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Gumola, for that intervention.
Any students?
Yes.
Question or comment?
Do you have any students who want to have a question or make a comment? Okay, if there is none, no problem. Want to react to the question, please? I'll give you 3 minutes, sir. I want us to end this session too.
Let me first give Yausa 1 minute.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Nadine. Let me start with the question of personal experience. Since the first day I came to the museum, the museum director have been helpful. Though I'm a kind of person that I'm used to crowds, especially in the North, we always sit, talk together like this. So I feel somehow isolated where I stay in the hotel, but the director will carry me to where they play squash. I'll go there, meet new people. Like, it's somehow encouraging. And back to my supervisor, I've been almost like his son, because my office is just beside his own office. And always, I'm always with him. Whenever he's in the office, I'll be there throwing unnecessary questions and everything. But he's always there to answer these questions. And he even tried to take me out to other gatherings that does not relate to the museum or the my project of connecting the dots. Sometimes we go to the, what do they call that house? The staff something?
Staff club.
Yeah. We go to the staff club together where we meet some, okay.
Hello. Students, please, we made some provisions for you. Please, just waiting for about 10 minutes. I understand you have another class, so just wait for about 10 minutes. We'll be done. So please, thank you very much. Just hold on for just 10 minutes. Please, let's.
Yeah, so that's all. He has been like a father. He has been putting me through, and even other researches that is not directly connected to the main research I've been doing. There are some other things we have been doing together. I think we'll be publishing some academic articles together in time. So thank you. That's my whole experience. And all other museum staff have been helpful all over the time. It's so much emotional when I remember that I will be missing you guys. I will seriously miss you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much. Just like the comment of Baba, we are now thinking of putting our touch more on the palace, Ibodo, and what they call that area, Womanije area. Because in Womanije, they discover a lot of artifacts that have to deal with Ife. And so we have to start our touch there. And then back to the question of the secretary, Mrs. Adeleke. Yeah, your question. The importance of beads. Of course, in Yoruba land, we all know the importance of beads. When Ade Lafim Moba, Ileke Lafim Motani, Ijoye. Yes. So, yes, yes, because in the beginning, that is how you have to identify the royal family. You will see the prince, they have to put beads on their hands. In fact, when you have a new baby, you have to find this small bead. And that one, they are even using that one to measure either the child is growing or it's not growing. So it is important in Yoruba culture, and that is why we have it all over. And I want to tell you, there's a difference between beads and beads.
Yes.
Most of the beads people are putting on now are just plastic beads from China.
Yes.
But the original beads, either shegi or inyo, is the glass bead, which is the original one from Africa. And we did not one from Ife.
Thank you very much,
so,
Prof.
And that's just it.
Thank you very much. There will be another opportunity to talk on this. And let me thank you, for this session that we just conclude now. Sorry? So please, because I want us to finish quickly.
The question from Dr. Ajiboye on the exhibition. When we finish here, we are going to the Naturality Museum. Yes. You will see his exhibition on the fieldwork.
Thank you very much. So that we can move on to the next stage of the program. So thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you.